Hey everyone, this is Mike with BuzzTox, and today we'll be doing a recap and review, breaking down Episode 5 of The Mandalorian, and getting most of those Star Wars references which were littered throughout it. So please comment below if you found a few that we didn't mention. Lots of spoilers ahead for Episode 5, so be warned. The episode begins with a hotshot bounty hunter pilot trying to take down the Razor Crest. Things aren't looking good for our hero until he pulls off the exact same move that Maverick did in Top Gun. He slams on the brakes and locks in for the kill and gets the pilot as the pilot goes flying past him. Now, it's definitely a reference to Top Gun because of the way that the pilot is dressed with that face mask. He looks like a classic fighter pilot. Mando is losing fuel after the attack and is forced to land on a little backwater planet called Tatooine. And this is revealed through, obviously, the look of the planet, but also the mention of the Mos Eisley Tower. Now, Tatooine is the home planet of both Anakin and Luke Skywalker, and plays a pretty central role in a lot of the previous movies. Mando lands, and we meet a mechanic named Pelimoto, played by Amy Sedaris. You probably recognize her from a lot of other shows where she usually plays a minor comedic role, and she's always great in everything that she does. She gets to say some classic Star Wars phrases, like carbon scoring. Luke said that too, that R2-D2 and C-3PO had a lot of carbon scoring on them in A New Hope. She says womp rat. Luke used to bullseye them in his T-16. Motivator. The R5 unit had a bad one in A New Hope. And Beggar's Canyon. Luke mentioned it to Biggs during the Battle of Yavin. In this episode, Peli and her pit repair droids, those are from The Phantom Menace, end up the babysitters of Baby Yoda while Mando is off continuing this episode's plot. Mando finds himself in the Mos Eisley Cantina, shown in A New Hope, looking for work in order to pay for his ship repair. And the cantina is looking pretty slow compared to A New Hope, but we still see some interesting characters, including a reptilian Tishar and an Alderaanian Killik, the ant guy. Droids are also now apparently allowed in the bar, with an R5 unit there and an EV-9D9 droid tending bar. So it's nice to see that we've gotten a little more progressive in Mos Eisley over the years. The bartender droid might actually be the same one shown in Return of the Jedi as a supervisor droid in Jabba's palace. And we need to remember that we're 5 years after Return of the Jedi in the show. At the bar, we're introduced to Toro Calican, who's playing with a New Republic coin. He's a very Han Solo-esque character. He carries the same blaster as Han and mentions Han's homeworld Corellia later on. I think he even sits in the same seat in the bar that Han did in A New Hope. He's the gunslinger from the episode title, a rookie bounty hunter trying to get into the guild. Toro wants Mando to join him in tracking down Fennec Shand, an Imperial assassin. But Mando isn't up for this kind of tough job. And this is an interesting scene in the episode. It seems that the Mandalorian knows his limits. Just like with the AT-ST in the last episode, he doesn't have any kind of death wish, taking on things that he knows he likely can't handle. And the fact that he said no had me excited for how Toro was eventually going to get Mando in on his plan. But then Toro just basically says, please, I need it to get into the guild, and Mando just says yes. Now, to me, that seemed like such a missed opportunity for some interesting plot turns here. Toro did offer him the whole bounty, though, so maybe Mando just wanted the cash. But do you think he was actually moved by the young bounty hunter? Was he reminded of himself at a younger age? And I personally don't think that that was the case here, because he didn't have enough time with Toro at this point for him to have appealed to the Mandalorian's soft side. Anyway, they take off in 2 speeders, leaving the baby in the care of Peli, who acts as a mother figure babysitter for them throughout the show. And we came across another New Hope reference now, our Tusken Raiders that are riding on Banthas. Toro looks through his binocs, and just like Luke in A New Hope, the Raiders appear out of nowhere. They're very sneaky guys. Mando speaks Tusken sign language, apparently, and they trade Toro's new binocs for passage through the land. And this was fine. I mean, Tusken Raiders are great, but how does it fit into the plot? What significance will it have later on? I don't think any. It's just another reference they threw in because they thought fans would love it. And I'm just not that into this one. I mean, it's fine. It's Star Wars. I love it, just like you. But if you're going to do something like this, it should have significance of some sort. We're telling a story here, and events should matter. Hopefully, we will eventually see these raiders again later, and this scene will come back into play somehow. Maybe they'll be friends with the Mandalorian later on and help him in some way. I don't know. They then come across a dewback, and this animal was first shown in A New Hope being ridden by stormtroopers. The dewback is dragging a body which turns out to be a dead bounty hunter set up as a trap by Fennec. She's on high ground with a sniper rifle, referencing Obi-Wan having the high ground in Revenge of the Sith. It didn't work out very well for Anakin Skywalker, and in this episode, Mando shows himself to be a bit smarter than Anakin. He and Toro wait until night to get the drop on the Imperial assassin. They use flash charges to blind her as they make their fast approach on their speeders. Mando takes a shot right in the chest, but is saved by his Beskar. And we get that scene shown in the trailer of Toro stopping on the speeder. Now, a lot of people thought that that was actually Pedro Pascal with his helmet off, but here we've got Toro. They look very similar in real life, the two characters, the two actors. Toro and Fennec fight, and Fennec has the upper hand until the Mandalorian catches up and gets her to cuff herself. One of the speeders is destroyed during their approach, so Mando goes back alone to get the dewback. He warns Toro that Fennec is no good to them dead. And this is also another reference to Boba Fett in The Empire Strikes Back, who said, "He's no good to me dead," talking about Han Solo to Darth Vader. So Toro is left with Fennec, who tells him about the events at the end of Episode 3 in Navarro. She tempts his ego, saying he'll be legendary if he brings in the Mandalorian and the baby. And Toro seems to have given in, and we think he's going to release Fennec so that they can work together to take in the Mandalorian and the baby. And then we have our major plot twist. Toro does a quick draw and shoots the tied up Fennec. Says she's too dangerous, she'll just kill him if she sets him free. He heads back to Mos Eisley, leaving her for dead. By the time Mando gets back to his ship, Toro's taken the baby and Peli hostage, and it all just seems like a bad plan on Toro's part, as his character turns out to be this greedy, naive guy. Mando uses one of his leftover flash charges and kills Toro. Then Mando leaves, and where he's off to next is anyone's guess. We then have a mysterious man in black at the end of the episode, approaching the body of Fennec. Presumably the person she was going to rendezvous with there on Tatooine that she mentions earlier. And this is likely Giancarlo Esposito's character Moff Gideon we've seen from the trailers. He'll be our main antagonist in the series and is likely the individual who's after the baby. It was mentioned in episode 2 that the doctor and the client were being given orders by someone, or maybe that was episode 3. Most likely the Moff, who's trying to reestablish Imperial control in the area in the Outer Rim. And this was really just another filler episode. And I'm getting the feeling now with this show that Season 1 is not going to bring a lot of closure to all of the questions we've raised so far. And I don't think we're going to get a full story arc out of it, just a big series finale that will keep us wanting more for Season 2. It's all starting to feel very formulaic serial to me. Just like in the last episode, Mando shows up. We get a couple of character intros, we have a little mini story play out, and he leaves. And honestly, this isn't what I was hoping for this series. I would really like us to go deeper here and be able to talk out some meaning from these episodes on character development, but there really isn't that much substance from the show and its characters yet. Maybe in the long haul we'll be able to go deep into things, but there's not much here to go on. The episode was really all just about references to previous Star Wars movies, and I enjoyed it being a big Star Wars fan. I'm not sure how people would have felt if they aren't big Star Wars fans and they're just starting to like this show. It was a bit disappointing because in the first few episodes we had a lot of references for fans to chew on, but there was also a lot going on at the same time. And comparatively, this episode was really lacking good dialogue and character development. We barely had anything from the baby in this episode, who we all love to see doing stuff, and we were introduced to 2 characters and saw them die before we could really learn to care about them at all. The main plot twist in this episode held no substance, because you didn't really get a chance to care about Fennec in any way. And we also didn't get much character development from Mando, other than him learning that perhaps he should be bit more mindful in taking care of the child and not placing his trust so easily in others. Things you'd think he'd already know from being a Mandalorian. So tell me what you thought. How does this rank for you in terms of episodes? For me, it's episode 3 has been the best, then the first 2, which really went together, then 4 and 5. Where do you think he's going to go next? And do you think that was Moff Gideon in black at the end? Or are we going to maybe see Boba Fett again? Personally, I'd like it if the Moff had a second powerful guy working with him, just like the Emperor had Darth Vader. And where's Cara Dune? Do we trust her? There's lots of questions that have been unanswered so far, and I'd love to hear your theories. Thanks, everybody, and remember to like and subscribe to us here at BuzzTox.